Welcome to MVP Mondays. It is so good to have you join us. If you're joining us live, welcome. Throw up a comment, say hi, where you're watching from, chat in the chat column, whatever platform you're watching this on. We really want you to engage this evening. We have got a special treat for you. We have got Tola Okogu, who I interviewed last week. And in preparation for this evening, I asked her a number of questions about her journey. You see, one of the things I am passionate about is seeing the hidden potential that is inside every human being drawn out. I believe that there is hidden glory. In other words, that God, who created us, has hidden something inside of us that he wants to display to the world. And we have to go through a process of unlocking that. We have to go through a journey of transformation to deliver that to the world. And I count it a privilege and I count it a pleasure to journey with people to seeing that displayed, to become a reality. And Tola's journey, I've been able to see that up close over the last couple of years, but it's longer than just 2 years, it's a lifetime. Her journey has been one of understanding the gifts and talents and skills that she has, understanding the passion and the change that she wants to make, and her experiences along life's way, along with the support networks around her, all coming together to deliver something truly special to the world. And I want to encourage you, you've got something in you too. And MVP Mondays is about creating an environment where we draw that out, where we throw questions at you that hopefully tease out that hidden treasure, that hidden glory, that solution to a problem, that book, that song, that business, that church, that community, that project, that business, whatever it might be, to see that come out, because the future is in you. And I'm excited that as you hear this story, and we celebrate this story so far because it's only just begun, I just know that it is going to inspire so many people. So Tola is going to unpack her journey. I'm going to be interviewing her. Just to say that I'm learning about how to record in advance of a live session. So unfortunately, the quality, particularly on when the camera is on me, isn't particularly great. The sound is really good because we created a separate track. So do bear with us when it's looking at me. But to be honest, most of the time it's focused on who it should be focused on, which is Tola. And that is a quality picture. So just want to give you that up front. And of course, on these Monday nights, we're going to do everything that we can to deliver the very best quality content, quality sound, quality visual that we can. But I just know that as you engage with this story now, over this next 40 or so minutes, then I really want you to make notes. I really want you to put comments up, things that resonate with you, things that you're feeling, things that you're thinking. Write them down, really engage with the conversation, okay? And I'll see you afterwards. Well, here I am with Tola Okogu. Tola, welcome to MVP Mondays.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Oh, we are ecstatic that you are able to join us. And of course, we're pre-recording this ahead of our live broadcast. But we are so excited to unpack your journey in the time that we have. I know it's like asking the impossible to break down however many years, not many years for you because you're still very young, into such a short period of time. I've been brought up well, Tola.
I don't always feel it. My knees are telling me something entirely different.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Our minds are young, but our bodies are telling us something else, eh? So we're going to just go on a bit of a journey, ask you some questions. And I just know that your story is going to inspire. It's going to give people something to think about. And obviously, we've known each other now for, I think, probably 3 years.
Yeah. So
That's just mad, isn't it?
2019.
Okay, so maybe a little bit longer even.
Yeah. It's wow.
Wow, look at that. So Tola, give us a little bit of a background. So tell us kind of maybe your family, who's in your family, because you've got a fantastic family, fantastic husband, fantastic girls, and tell us a little bit about your context right now, and then we'll dive into the questions about kind of your journey.
Yeah, certainly. So I have an amazing husband, and two young girls, 5-year-old, 8-year-old. I currently work as an author. I'm a trained journalist and have worked as a hair care coach. And I've been writing books since about 2016. Now was when I published the first book, self-published, and then more recently I have traditional publishers. And it's been a journey to kind of get to this point where writing is my full-time work. We also home educate our daughters as well, which in itself can feel like a full-time job. But yeah, so that's kind of like my journey to kind of, this is what I do now, or part of who I am. Also, so I've said mom, author, daughter, myself, got amazing parents who've been married for like how many years now? It's like 42 years, I want to say.
Wow.
We just, yeah, amazing sort of example of what is possible for myself. And yeah, also, daughter of Christ as well, which is a big part of my journey, how I've gotten to this point. And yeah, the reason why I do what I do. Yeah.
So good. Well, listen, let's start at the beginning. How did your early years shape who you are today and what you're doing today?
Oh, okay. So I was born in Nigeria, moved here when I was 6 years old. And it's funny, it's only as an adult that I've been able to begin to even unpack some of I hate to use the word trauma because it's so overused nowadays, but I guess, yeah, some of the emotions around such a drastic move and change of circumstance and environment at such a young age. A lot of which I wasn't able to process as a child, and so only beginning to process now as an adult. And a lot of it feeds into my writing and the things that I choose to write about and I'm passionate about. But I would definitely say, that shift has had a big impact in the way that I see the world, the way I moved through the world. And I was blessed to have two parents that were, at least from a cultural perspective, because we're Nigerian, quite kind of willing to let their children find their way. So there wasn't a lot of sort of parental pressure to decide or figure out, or just not even figure out, but to go into a certain set route. It wasn't like we had to be doctors or architects or lawyers or whatever. They were very sort of, well, what do you want to do? And let us find our path, which I think has also played a really big part. And, also being raised in a Christian household. So my parents were Christians, grew up in the church. There's so many times where I kind of think back on the past and certain paths and the directions and different ways I could have gone. And I think, wow, if it had not been for God. Whew. Yeah. So that, even though growing up, it was, at first living my parents' faith was what was kind of guiding me, and then going through my own journey of deciding, am I going to follow God for myself and have my own relationship? And there was a period where he was far more in the background. He was still always there. Like I can always say that God's presence has always been in my life in some way, shape or form. And that understanding of who he is, what he is, has always been there, which I think it's been a big part of my journey. And one of the things that I'm so passionate or really want to instill in our girls, that whatever decisions they make, God be real for them, and not just a concept or an idea, but actually a person that you can have a relationship with. So for me, that combination of God, the freedom to explore, has been a big part of what shaped me and led me here, because I took a very long-winded journey. And I've said this before, and people kind of say, well, is it really long-winded? You're not that old. For me, it feels long-winded. I feel like I spent my whole sort of 20s and half of my 30s figuring it out and doing lots of different things. And I think I'm that personality type where I can turn my hand to doing lots of different things, but it doesn't mean that's the thing I'm supposed to do or be. So it's taken longer to get to the point of like, okay, I feel like I'm actually now moving in my purpose. So yeah.
That's really good. And that's an interesting thought that you just mentioned, because, you know, I think some people, and again, based upon how many talents people have doesn't determine self-worth. So, but some people have very clearly kind of a single talent or maybe a couple of talents. Other people have learned to turn their hands to multiple things and actually do, you know, an excellent job at a lot of things. And that sounds like a blessing, but can also be a curse, can't it? So let me just ask you about that. So if you can turn your hand to many things, those options can sometimes create a level of confusion for people. How did you kind of sift through that and land on creative writing as part of that avenue that you took?
Yeah, you're so right that it can cause confusion and actually be a distraction, I think, in many ways as well. And what was interesting for me is all the different avenues and things that I tried and, you know, attempted, weirdly enough, were all creative now that I think about it. They were in a creative field, even though in my heart, if anybody had asked me, I would have said, oh, I'm not a creative person. But weirdly enough, all the things that I was doing, music, makeup, jewelry making, they were all quite creative. And even the writing, what led me to my journalism, to choose to do a journalism degree, was actually my love of language and writing. But I quickly discovered that I didn't want to be a journalist. I didn't want to write to someone else's brief. So I kind of ran from that for quite a few years. And I think for me, it was that willingness to explore, to try and to keep trying, but also not be scared. And this goes back to the people that I'm surrounded by, from my parents to my husband, that feeling of not being made to feel a failure at the point when you realize this isn't it. Because I think that's what can sometimes keep us doing things we're not supposed to, we're not meant to, is that fear of the failure, of how the people around us will react, what they'll say, what they'll think. And I was blessed to have people who were so deeply supportive that I felt free to be able to, when I figured it out, like, nah, this isn't it. I was like, okay, what next? So that really freed me up to not be scared of failure, keep trying, and that kept me moving. And I think it was that momentum and that continuous movement. And so then when the time was right, and weirdly enough, all of the skills that I had acquired all those years have been amazing tools and resources in this place. Now that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I've been able to utilize, from, you know, the ability to use InDesign from my journalism days to the ability to create websites. It's just been ridiculous. And so I also see that journey as part of the process and part of the plan now as well. And so when it then kind of at the right time, right moment, it came about as, because I remember a pastor saying this to me many years ago, that often, you know, the things we're supposed to do, often it's an answer to a need, someone's need. Sometimes it'll be your need, or it could be someone else's need, but you are the solution to a need. And in my case, the need was, you know, wanting more diverse books, and books that featured more diverse characters, especially characters that looked like me, which is something I didn't have as a child. And once I had my child, that really became a loud noise in my head. And it was a struggle to find those books. And, you know, it led to that question of, well, could you be the solution or part of the solution to this problem that you see?
Really good. So the path has been a path of experimenting, trying things, failing and learning, but ultimately nothing has been wasted. It's all culminated in you landing on what sounds like a very clear mission. So, and you've just alluded to what that is, but if I were to say, you know, what is your mission? What is your clear objective right now as you see it? You know, how would you articulate that, and just expand a little bit on that for us?
Sure. I mean, it's still evolving, and God is still very much kind of exposing or making it clear to me what it is as I move through each sort of next activity. I still don't see the bigger picture, and I probably won't. He's just showing me a little bits, and I keep moving. But what feels clear of now is because what the passion that he's placed on my heart is to inspire and to it's that inspiration for young children. It's through books, through reading, through literacy. And it's the idea of the world around us and how we want it to look, and everybody is different. And it's getting to that place of embracing that which makes us different and realizing it's nothing to be scared of, because God has made us this way for a reason. And so my passion is to contribute to that goal, that dream, where we live in a world where we can all love each other, not be afraid of our differences. And so in the books that I write, it works to that aim, which is to kind of show our differences, but show it in its beauty. And for kids especially, because, you know, at that age, that's when you're forming your ideas about what the world is and your place in it. And I think it's so important that children really get to see different cultures and people in all their beautiful variety, in order that they not just be accepting of it, because it's not necessarily about acceptance, it's understanding, I think, of it. So that has been kind of the underlying driver of my books, and I write very much from my cultural perspective. And so I write about characters that look like me, or that are Nigerian, or that have Afro hair, and also speaking to the girls that look like me, the women that look like me, and the damage that has been done over time, where they've been made to feel less than, and starting to be part of that healing process, a journey that I myself had to go on, and God took me through, and realizing that there's so many women and young girls out there that are still going through it, or need to start that journey for themselves.
This may be a bit of a deep question, but would you say that what you're currently going through in terms of helping people with that healing process is at the same time healing some of that trauma that you have experienced, almost as, you know, and you've become aware of probably in later years, as you said, aware of kind of how it affected you and impacted you? Is there almost like a healing process that takes place as you're trying to help heal others?
Yes, it's a caveat, because obviously it's if you let it, because I think that there is going to be a confrontational part of it. You are going to be confronted with things, triggers, memories. You're going to see things in a different way. So, for example, in writing one of the books that I wrote on Yeka, the dynamic between the mother and the daughter in the book is complicated. And in writing that relationship, I had to confront my complicated relationship with my mother and my complicated relationship with my daughters, and being able to see the two sides. Because as a daughter, you see things one way, and it's only until you become a mother that you start to see the other side of it. You're like, oh, so that's why she did what she did. And now trying to explain that to my daughter, who's looking at me like, you don't understand. I'm like, no, you don't understand. So it is absolutely, you know, making me face those things. And it's a daily choice to deal with them, to not bury them. And so, yes, healing can absolutely take place, but you have to choose to walk that path, because it's just as easy to choose to bury it, ignore it. I think for me, a healing is happening, a better and deeper understanding of myself as well is taking place through this process.
That's so good. And, you know, when we talk about people being MVPs, it's about, you know, the most valuable player. It's bringing that value that God has placed in you and bringing it to the space or the sphere where you operate. But that process of bringing that value out means dealing with the obstacles that are in the way, you know, the lids that are trying to keep that value suppressed, which often are obstacles of pain, obstacles of fear, obstacles of limiting beliefs, and things that we've picked up or experienced along the way. So I love the fact that, you know, when it's your mission, it's not just a clear route of I'm helping people because I've got it all sorted, but I am getting sorted as I help people.
Yeah.
And it's powerful.
It is, because I think that otherwise, because we all will deal with imposter syndrome in whatever industry or sphere we move in, especially as we're moving successfully through it. And I think that that understanding is the only true antidote to dealing with it, because the pressures to feel like you're coming to the table perfect. And so it's like, well, if I'm going to be saying I'm helping people deal with this, or I'm speaking to that, I must already have myself together and perfect in that. And that's not really what it's about, because it's a continuous journey. So I think definitely finding a measure of comfort in that understanding that I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm still going to make mistakes even as I'm doing it. Really it definitely helps me when imposter syndrome especially hits and I start to feel like, do I belong here? Am I supposed to be doing this? What have I got to offer? So yeah,
that's so good. And you mentioned there, moments when you had realizations of how things had affected you in the past, or transitions or experiences that you've been through. And have you hit points along the way where you felt like this is too much, where you felt like, I'm not sure I can push past this obstacle or deal with this thing that now I'm staring at? Have there been those moments along the way, either internal things or kind of external challenges that you've had to deal with?
I'm in one of those moments right now. So the answer to that is yes, there have been and there still are. Both, as you said, external and internal, obstacles that come from your surroundings, the people around you, or just like it seems like a closed door. And then also, my inner myself, my fears, things I'm confronting all the time. I am an introvert. I like to be in my cave quietly and left alone. And one of the biggest obstacles for me has been, given what my job is, it can be quite public facing at points. So half of it is, being in your writing cave, solitude, writing, and then the book comes out and suddenly you have to be out there talking to all manner of people. And, and so for me, it's definitely stretched me to come out of that, where, and you'll remember when we've had conversations and I said to you, I don't like people. And you like, Tola, is that really true? And really challenging kind of those thoughts and those limiting thoughts, because as long as I think I don't like people, then that's my excuse to avoid people, but it's not really that. And so it's looking at, what is the root of that? And right now I'm on a deadline for the next book. But everything else, life is still going on. We're now home educating the girls. So there are the external obstacles or difficulties of there just doesn't seem to be enough time in the day. And, I have not had to write in this situation quite like this before. And it's not easy. It's hard. And there are some days where I think, oh Lord, have I bitten off more than I can chew? And also just with the girls as well, home education, that daily walk of, is this the right move? Am I damaging these girls? That kind of stuff. So it has happened. It is happening, and I have no doubt it will happen. But each time that I have gone through one of those situations, ultimately what usually happens with me is I try to get through it and figure it out through my own mind, come to the end of myself, and then I'm like, I'll either realize it myself a bit late in the day, or somebody, my nearest and dearest, will go, Tola, you spoken to God lately? And I'll be like, oh yeah, should have done that first. And so then I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I've made a mess, help me. And he always does. You know what I mean? He always does. And it's not so much that he, swoops in and fixes things. Sometimes it's just peace. It is just a peace that comes of knowing I'm not in it alone, that helps me to get through because some difficulties, you just have to sit through it. There's no avoiding it. There's no fix it. You just have to sit in it. And so it's that strength that comes from his peace, that he's with me. No matter how hard this gets, he is with me. I will see the other side. And even if I don't see the other side, he is with me. And so, so that's how generally I get through.
Well, that leads nicely on to the next question, which you've kind of already started to answer, but I think there's probably more there, which is how big a role has your faith played? You know, because by the sounds of it, and obviously I know you, those aren't just kind of throw out their prayers, which some people, you know, do in moments of crisis. They say, you know, God help me, whether that's a flippant remark or whether that genuinely is a cry for help. But for you, I know it's more than that. But kind of, can you help those that are watching, those that are listening, understand to what extent does your faith play a role?
To every extent. I mean, it's, as with many areas of my life, it's still a work in progress. One of the difficulties that I've found in my Christian walk is that because I can do so much, because I can figure so much out, that will always be my default. So one of the things that I have always struggled with and still struggle with and work on is that putting Jesus at the center, putting God at the center. And out of that should all things come. So, it's so funny because things always start to spiral or go nuts when he's moved out of his rightful place. And it just takes me longer than it should to figure out, oh no, that's the problem. So having gone through that journey, it's taken a while, but it's the realization that for me, he has to be at the center. He has to kind of, like, everything has to start with him, and make him first in my life. And because I have seen him move so wonderfully in my life, there can be no doubt about his existence. There can be no doubt about his power, about his might, about his grace, about his love for me. Like, I've just seen it too many times to doubt it. So especially with everything that's happened with the books in the last 2 to 3 years, it defies reason. Like, on paper, everything that's happened just doesn't make sense unless you say, but God. And it's so funny because I think it's all part of the plan, because he knows how I think, he knows how I work. He knows that nobody can or should be able to take the glory for it, because I will do it if left to my own devices. So he constantly reminded me, yeah, that was mine. I did that. You know, I did that. And I'm like, yeah, I know you did that. Okay. And I need that constant reminder. Yeah. And he keeps giving it to me, which kind of checks me, and reminds me of the order of how things should be. And because, you know, I really am only here by his grace, it's very much my reason for doing. So it's kind of, what's the next thing? And you reminded me of this as well, as did my husband, back when the books happened and the deals happened and stuff. That reminder to not let my identity become wrapped in the things that I do, and remembering that they're for a purpose, they're to achieve something, but they're not me. They're not the entirety of who I am or what I'm meant to do. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. No, amazing. And so let's zoom in on the journey, because obviously when I first started talking to you, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point in relation to your writing, you had come away from some kind of secular employment that you had. You had a period of being a full-time homemaker, which in and of itself is a full-time job. But then you were starting to look at, or you were self-publishing. So take us on that route of where you went from starting a self-published book through to where you are now. Just let people in on as you have said, that miracle unfolded.
So I first set up a publishing company in 2016, and I published my first 3 picture books under that company. And you know, God was with us through that journey, because the publishing industry is quite difficult. It's opaque. It's really hard to know how things are done. And so in many of circumstances, we were making it up as we went along, but God was so faithful, and we successfully, you know, published these 3 picture books, and they did well, especially considering we didn't have the funds to kind of have this big marketing machine and promotion and all of those things. I always say to people when they ask me about self-publishing, writing the book is the easiest part. Letting people know that it exists, that's a whole nother ball game, and it requires a completely different skill set to being a writer. That's why publishers exist. That's their job. And so I had done that, and you know, we were doing okay, but I found that I was spending more time being a publisher than being a writer. And what I wanted to do was write books, and I wasn't getting enough time to do so. So it was the realization that I needed to go back to the drawing board and maybe explore the traditional route again. The traditional route being finding a publisher who buys or acquires your manuscript, turns it into the book, and does a lot of that work for you. And so pivoted around 2018 to try and pursue that and explore that. And so I was just started writing. It was my first novel that I started working on. I did a few grants. I think Arts Council grant was one of them, did some competitions. And then you and I met around the end of, I think it was 2019. And at that point, I had just quit my 9 to 5. I had finished the manuscript, the first novel. I was about to, or was beginning to query it to try and get an agent who would be the person who would find a publisher for me. And you know, optimistically looking at 2020, thinking, oh, all manner of things are going to happen. And all manner of things did happen in the year that was 2020.
Oh, yes. That year.
Yeah. But, you know, working with you enabled me to make a plan. I think that was one of the most amazing parts of my time with you, and the kind of the skills that it gave me, because I hadn't really done that before. But it was that you have a vision, write it down, make it clear, so you can see it and you know what you're working. And also God, you've stated it and you both know, okay, this is it, this is what we're doing. But you know, as long as he's on board. But it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. These are the steps to get here. These are things I need to do. And having kind of that written out clearly for the first time, so I could kind of like track it as well. So from there, queried that manuscript. Nothing much happened with it because it wasn't quite right. So then spent the first and the middle half of 2020 rewriting it. And as you know, God being as amazing as he is, ended up getting an agent. So I'm going to try and wrap up because I could ramble for a while. But yeah, got an agent, got a book deal for that manuscript, which allowed me to basically write full time. Because up until that point, I had quit my 9 to 5. Pandemic had happened, decimated the creative industry. So, you know, there were a few tough months there. And God just kind of swooped in and said, right, this is what you're doing now. You're going to write. And I've made it possible for you to do it. And no excuses, because I've taken away all of the distractions. You don't have to, you know, work 9 to 5. This is it. And he made that possible. And then from there, it was a 2-book deal for a series called Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun. The book was also optioned by Netflix to be made into a live action movie, and it's produced by Will Smith and David Oyelowo, which was just left field, like completely came from nowhere, but was just phenomenal. So the first book came out last year, June. The second book is coming out this week, and I'm writing. So I've got another 2-book deal. So I'm in the middle, in the middle of writing book 3 with a 4th book waiting for me to get round to that as well. So yeah.
Wow. And like you said, there is so much in that last 2 to 3 years. Because, and you're absolutely right. You know, when you see the hand of God, when you see his grace, when you see that miracle unfolding, you know, you do want to talk about it, and you should, because, you know, that's what we're here. We're here for the praise of his glory, which is to tell his story, isn't it? You know, through the lens of what he's doing in and through our lives. And, you know, just through that period in the last 2 years, particularly, what has happened in you that you feel now is going to shape the next 10 years, 20 years? You know, how has that changed, or has it changed, you know, how you see the future and what you believe in him you're capable of doing?
I think definitely there has been a shift in what I believe, I'm capable of doing, and what is possible through him. So yeah, that has been a big shift for me, and a willingness and an openness to step out and be bold and be brave, as well. And just that realization that we have to boldly declare for him, and go out there and claim back what's his. Really, that's our job. Like, it really is our job, and we all have a different way that we've been tasked and blessed and skilled to do it, and it's what we have to get busy doing. And it's not easy in these times at all. So I think definitely it's kind of blown my mind in that regard of what is possible, because if it was just up to me, what I could see, it would have been a tenth of what he's done. And so it goes back to that limiting beliefs and just really, really realizing what is possible through him and in him. And in terms of me, what was the first part of that question?
So, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, how has, you've seen God move amazingly in the last 2 years. And I think that does two things, doesn't it? It amazes us at how good he is, how gracious he is. But I think it does expand our horizon. Now, if you did that, now what else can you do? So what are some of the things? How has that pushed that horizon for you? And, are there some kind of clear aspirations that you have that you'd like to either kind of instigate or just simply be part of making happen?
Well, weirdly enough, I think what's becoming clearer to me was that the last few years was an establishment. And I mean, that's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, but it was an establishment of something, because I actually think that what my focus is and is meant to be over the next few years is home, is my family, because second to him, they are the next important things to me. And so, and as a woman, it's been very clear and aware that whilst the world says that we can have it all, it isn't true in reality. And so with every choice that we make, there is an opportunity cost. And so as a mother, if I am growing a business, then somewhere along the line, my children are being affected by the decision. So it's that difficulty, that balancing act that we do as mothers. And so I feel, or have been feeling more strongly, that, the establishment was to create a foundation, was to create some sort of stability, in order that I can better now focus on that role of mother, of wife, especially as my husband's ministry starting to sort of really soar, because God spent a good amount of time the last few years breaking him down and building him back up again, because he's ready for him to fly. And so for him to fly, home has to be secured. And that's just that's how we roll, that's how we move, because if we're both flying, things at home will suffer. So I feel like that's the season that I'm moving into, and I'm so grateful that God has made provision for me to be able to do that, and be able to make that my focus.
That's so good. And one of the key things about this idea of MVPs, people that will bring that value, that Christ value that they carry in them and bringing it to the world, is that I believe that as we do that, as we go through that transformative journey that you've been on and are on, that God will bring us to a seat at tables that we didn't think we'd be at. Places of influence, talking to people of influence, so that, as you said, there is just an expansion and a revealing of who he is to this world, which ultimately he created. And, that journey is one in which we have to get over the fact that it's Christ in us. And we have to put off the old self that gets in the way, the limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome, all of those things. But I believe, there are people that will be listening to this, that will be watching you, listening to you, and that will realize, God wants me at that table. He wants me in that place of influence. And, that place of influence, it starts at home, because that's where our greatest influence is. That's where our legacy is. and
Yep.
it extends out from there,
Yeah.
not instead of there, as you said, but out from there into a particular industry or arena where God would position us. And I just think it's absolutely amazing, your story so far. And I believe the best definitely is yet to come for both
Yeah.
you and Goz, your husband, and your girls. It's just so exciting. And I guess my final question, and then I'll just share, I shared this with you a couple of months ago, but I think it's a great way of just reflecting back the influence you're already having on your mission. But my final question is, how important a role has, you've talked about having people around you, support around you. How important is that to those that are listening who may be trying to do it alone, who may be struggling because they're not sharing the challenge of this journey of their mission? And in with that, how important is the role of having somebody as a coach to help you think things out loud, etc.? So could you just let us in a little bit on your thoughts on that, the support, the coaching, and then I'll just share this story to finish off with.
Yeah, no, it's been invaluable. Like for the longest time, and he still is, but my husband is one of my biggest sort of, not just support, but coach and mentor as well. And at times he even had to play father, that role, because that's what I needed at that point. And so I have been blessed to have that in my life in some way, shape, or form, for quite a while. And he's actually who led me to you. So it has been invaluable, and it's so funny. It's something that's come up, in my role. Well, not in a role, but in terms of home educating, because the question we get asked a lot is about socializing and how will your kids socialize, how they make friends. And one of the things I always point out is, if you think about the social structure of school, children are grouped with people who are within the same academic year as them. So that's a 12-month period going up or down. But there's nowhere else in life that situation exists. Everywhere else, you are surrounded by people of all different ages. And it's important that we have that, because you need people who can mentor you and coach you and guide you because of that place of wisdom that they sit in and experience. But we also need to play that role for others as well, to be able to provide 100%. That guidance for sitting in our place of knowledge and experience of where we've been. And so as someone who used to be an island and would literally reinvent the wheel time and time again, it really slowed me down, because I would have to keep doing that each time, where actually it would have been better to reach out, ask for help, make a connection, meet someone. And so for me, one of the things that I've really embraced and I'm nurturing now is the value of relationships, of connectivity, of reaching out, asking for help as well, because you will get exhausted just from a really practical point of view. You cannot do it all yourself.
Totally.
So you will get exhausted and the mission will suffer for it. Not because it wasn't meant to happen, but because you took on too much, didn't ask for help, and burnt out. And ultimately, it's the mission that matters, not who does it. So so it's been invaluable to me. And our time together is valuable to me, and I so treasure it, because you help me see things beyond myself. Because no matter how enlightened we are or wise or whatever, we're still quite limited by our beliefs, our perception, so having an outside view, someone who can challenge us, help us see things in a new way, and just sometimes say that thing we already knew, but we just need somebody separate from ourselves or within our life to say it, to help us see it. So incredibly valuable. And I would definitely, we talk about you all the time, recommend it to anybody, especially if you're feeling stuck or lost. I think it absolutely can really, really help you see things in a new way.
I love that phrase that you mentioned about, if you stay as an island, you everything will slow down, everything will become far more difficult. And I think that will really just help somebody right now. What's the first thing that you can do, or what's the next thing that you can do to get off that island? Who's someone that you can open up to? What support can you add? Creating a team around you, and that a team
involves different people, as you said, different ages, different experiences. We need different people, different voices, trusted voices, but we do need people around us. So I know that people listening right now, that's going to help somebody really specifically. So thank you for that, Tola. And just kind of finally, let me share with yourself. I've shared this before, but I'll share it with those that are listening as well. There's a young girl who is in our church, and I think she's 9. I won't say her name to embarrass her, but she's from a family of Nigerian descent. And so she has been reading your book, Onyeka, and she is a fan. She brought to me one Sunday 4 pages of her book that she is writing. And when I say 4 pages, these were 4 full-on A4 lined pages with handwriting that I could only dream of having. And honestly, it was just the most amazing moment to see quite literally fruit of all those years. And obviously I've only seen a part of the last 3 years, but all those years of that journey, all of the heights and the lows, the breakthroughs, the trauma, all of that, but all coming together in rich fruit. And that's just one example, but what a powerful example to me it was, just to see that's the mission.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, to see someone who could see somebody represent her and inspire her to unlock her God-given creative potential, however that eventually manifests itself. And I obviously shared that with you to encourage you, but I just think, those are the moments that you long to see, aren't they?
They are, and it's weird. Like, God really knew I needed to see them because of where I was at, because of how difficult things were, especially in trying to write book 3. And so he's just been showering me in that. I think as book 2 is coming out, people are DMing me, sending me letters, just leaving comments on social media, like explaining or describing the impact this first book has had. And it's blown my mind. And it was the reminder that I needed, that it's bigger than me, and that it is having an impact, it is doing something. So it kind of pepped me back up, and be like, okay, get back on it. And you're right, fruit is so important to see as proof in some ways, that, what we're doing not just matters, but that is meant to happen. So yeah, it's powerful.
And, Christ said, I've appointed you to bear fruit, and fruit that will last, which, there's one thing, isn't there, especially in creative entertainment media industries, things can come and quite quickly go. And that, of course, is not ultimately the objective. It's to see the fruit that will last. And ultimately, fruit lasts in hearts and lives.
Yeah. Honestly. And if it's just that one child that read the book and thought, I am worthy of love, or thought I could be this, or I could do this, and that made an impact in where they went from there, that for me, that's it. That's enough.
Wow. Amazing. Well, just finally, Tola, in terms of where people can go and pick up the book, and what can they go and access about you, and just anything out there that people might be thinking, wow, this lady has inspired me, she's challenged me, I've got children who I want to kind of get hold of this. Just let anybody know where they can get the things that you're producing.
Sure. So my website is tolakogu.com, and all my social handles is at tolakogu. The latest book, Onyeka, and it's a series. Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun is the first book, which is available. And the second book, Onyeka and the Rise of the Rebels, is out on March the 2nd. There are also the picture books, Daddy Do My Hair series, and then also a series called Aziza's Secret Fairy Door, which is written under a pen name Lola Morayo. But all of my information, details, and links are on the website tolakogu.com.
Amazing. We'll put that here on this channel, so people can go straight there. So just check out the comment section below, and you can go and kind of immerse yourself in the world of Tola. And absolutely amazing. Listen, Tola, thank you for being who you are. Thank you for sticking to the mission and aligning yourself with who God says you are and what he's called you to do. And we know that there is so much more yet to come, and we will be praying for you, cheering you on. And so thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, I just know that we could have gone on for a whole lot longer than we did. But I know that there's lots of things in that conversation that would have got you thinking, that would have stirred something inside of you. And here's what I want to do. I want to encourage you to be online next Monday night, because we are going to do the preface to a brand new journey. I'm calling it the MVP journey. And it's a 7-step process, a coaching process, all based on biblical principles, but around the 3 key areas that you and I have to engage with if we're truly going to unlock the greatest and deepest potential that we carry that's inside of us and deliver that to the world. You see, there is a gap very often between the desires of our hearts and the demand of our current reality. And that gap can often cause us to settle for less than the best, because we think, well, will it ever happen? There's a gap between the person that I project to other people and the authentic me. And whilst there's that gap, it's going to prevent that dream coming to a reality. But then there's also the gap between our intention, the things that I want to do and maybe even fantasize about doing, but actually I don't action. I don't actually put it into place. I don't have a plan to ensure that I'm consistent with what I need to be doing. You know, Tola's story involves all 3 of those elements. I know, because on that journey I've been a small part in just trying to encourage her over those last couple of years particularly. But I want you to know that if you engage with this process, then we're going to see an army of MVPs move into the space that God has for you, to occupy it, to bring light, to bring change, to truly bring a positive impact and influence and increase into the key areas of society and across the nations. So join us next week for MVP Mondays. Make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel on Winning Life TV. We've also got the podcasts released on Wednesday and Friday from myself and Leanne. And so make sure you tune into that. But I will see you next Monday, and we will give you the introduction to this 7-step journey, which is going to be launched the following week. So make sure you're with us. Thank you, Tola, for sharing with us. What an incredible journey, what an inspiration. And I'm sure the rest of us will continue to pray and cheer on Tola on her journey of making a significant impact in this world. Good night, and God bless everyone.
In every episode of the Winning Life podcast and here on MVP Monday, you will hear Gareth and Leanne talk about the importance of getting a plan for your personal and professional life. That's why they have developed the MVP plan. When you develop your MVP plan, surprising opportunities and uncommon results follow. The MVP plan provides you with a clear structure to begin to see how your goals can turn into reality. Starting out with setting the goals, highlighting milestones, and planning individual tasks, you'll begin to see how the MVP plan is key to experiencing the results you've always wanted to have in order to make an impact in this world. Visit thewinninglife.tv today to get access to your plan and the steps on how to use it.